So this good-looking kid right here, that's me when I was 7 years old, shortly after I came to Canada with my mom. And I didn't realize it at the time, but I was going to spend my childhood and teenage years growing up in public housing. I saw a lot of people around me struggle because of money. And as I reflect on my childhood, I consider this as the starting point for my interest and eventual passion for personal finance. I think what solidified my interest in the field was my experience opening up a savings account at a bank. I had just finished my last year of college and decided I was going to invest the next 2 years of my life doing service for my church. Before I left, I took my remaining savings and gave it to a bank that told me that I was richer than I thought. I was told to bank at this bank because it was our family bank and it was convenient. It was right next door to our house. So a man in a three-piece suit sat me down and explained to me that my money would be guaranteed and it would be making interest at their highest rate possible. 2 years later, my excitement quickly disappeared when I came back and looked at what my account, the dismal interest that account had made. I thought to myself, hold on. This institution's best rate is less than half of inflation. This was the best they could do for me? It turns out it wasn't. And when I pointed it out, they quickly tried to get me to switch to another one of their products, which was supposedly better than the last. But why didn't they do what was best for me in the first place? When I learned that my money wasn't keeping up with inflation, I learned that I had to take control of my money back from the institution. But I also learned that the institution did not want to give control of my money up so easily and tried to entice me to stay. Needless to say, that experience changed my life, making teaching financial literacy a new priority for me, a calling in life. And in my journey in learning about money, I realized just how much I had to unlearn and rewire my understanding before I could create a healthy relationship with money. Today, I'm here to share with you a few of those unlearning moments so that you too can take back your money, power, and respect. The first lesson I learned about money was the lesson of control. By a show of hands, how many of you agree with the phrase, knowledge is power? Okay, quite a few of you. I used to as well, but what I've realized is that knowledge alone is not power. Applied knowledge is power. That being the case, we need to take control of our personal finances. After all, money is 20% knowledge and 80% behavior. I talk a lot about control with people and the dangerous degrees to which we allow institutions to control our money. So how did we get to this point? To understand our relationship with money as adults, we need to think about how we were first introduced to money and how it works. Besides being given a piggy bank at a young age, the conversation about money essentially ends there with the reminder to go to school, get good grades, get a good job with a good company, with benefits, and a good pension. So we're taught to keep our money in one safe place. So naturally, as adults, we take our piggy bank savings and a little bit more accumulated over time and place it into an adult piggy bank, a savings account. And we don't really pay too much attention as to where that is. In fact, for myself, I banked where I banked because my mom banked there. And my mom banked where she banked because my grandparents banked there. But what did this institution do to actually earn my business? Absolutely nothing. Now, don't get me wrong. Setting money aside in a savings account for emergencies and short-term goals is fine, but many of us place our long-term money there, and the impact of us parking our money in those vehicles can have an adverse effect on our future. And luckily, I saw those effects after 2 short years. Many of us buy homes and understand we can build equity in doing so. So instead of a piggy bank, why don't we teach our children that they can get their money working for them in the economy, thus enabling children to understand that their money has the capacity to grow and not be a victim of inflation. And then there's pensions. Many of the things that worked for our grandparents and our parents don't necessarily work for us today. Pensions were created as an incentive for you to not go to another employer. They were not created for us to rely on fully for our retirement. And yet, by giving up control to them, we get upset when they don't deliver on their promises. We have to take control back. The second lesson I want to share with you today is probably the most common: indifference or complacency. See, we live contracted lifestyles. We buy a house and sign a contract. We buy a car and sign a contract. We buy a cell phone and sign a contract. Netflix, gym memberships, student loans, credit cards, all contracts. And when we contract ourselves to these obligations, we often think of them first and forget that our biggest obligation is to pay ourselves first. I'd like to share a quick story with you. And before I do, I just want to make a disclaimer that I don't do a very good puppy impression. So please forgive me for that. One day there was a traveler who was driving from Calgary to Toronto. As he was driving, he stopped for some gas. He went into the gas station and saw a puppy sitting in the corner, kind of like this one. He made his way to the back of the store to grab some drinks. On his way to the back, he heard the puppy yelping, kind of like, So he turned around and asked the store clerk, "Excuse me, sir, what's wrong with your dog?" The store clerk said, "He's just a young pup, don't worry about him." So he thought, okay. He went to go get some drinks. On his way to get the drinks, the dog's yelp was a little bit more uncomfortable, more of like, "Rrr, rrr." So as he came to pay, he said, "Sir, I have to ask you, what is wrong with your dog?" He said, "You want to know what's wrong with my dog? He's sitting on a nail." The traveler said, "Well, what? He's sitting on a nail. Well, why doesn't he just get off?" And the store clerk said probably the most profound thing. He said, "It just doesn't hurt him enough." What's your financial nail? Are you aware that you could be doing better with your money, but don't because you've become complacent or indifferent with it? Many times it's because we've told ourselves that the pain of doing something is far worse than to just let it be. The challenge with this line of thinking is that a little pain over a long period of time is always worse than a little pain over a quick period of time. The longer you stay on the nail, the harder it is to get off. People spend more time planning a 2-week vacation than they do their financial lives. It's time to get off the nail. The third lesson I learned surrounds marketing. Words and images have a tremendous impact on what we think, do, and act with money. Slogans like, "You're richer than you think," with headlines like, "The stock market plummeted today." Imagine you're on the top floor of a building, you get into the elevator, and the button to go down says, "Plummet." We'd all take the stairs, right? This is why they lean their marketing to play on our emotions. Nobody wants their money to plummet. This is why when they tell us that something is guaranteed, we like it. And because they don't give us the full picture, they play on our emotions, and we make decisions based on emotion and justify it with logic. When our attention is solely focused on one aspect, we can't see the bigger picture, the real risks. So let's explore this idea for a minute here. Let's say there is a fire in your house. How would you get out? The front door? The back door? Well, the question we haven't asked is, where's the fire? See, if the fire is at the front door, you would go out the back. If the fire was on the first floor, you would go out a second-story building. Risk is subjective, and our perception of risk changes as we have more information available to us. The real risk with money is threefold: not outpacing inflation, outliving our money, and not having control of our money. So, money. It's the thing we're not taught about, the thing we're not supposed to discuss, and yet somehow the thing we're supposed to have millions of. As a result, money feels like it's more complicated than it actually is. I'm here to let you know that we can take control, that we can develop a stronger relationship with money. And as we do, we will begin to see and interact with money in a far healthier fashion. Unlearning our mistaken beliefs about money helps us to understand it and make it work for us. Because when we change the way we look at things, the things we look at change. Thank you.